Hello, I am Desiree. Welcome to my Inspired Human Design channel where I talk about inspiring human design concepts. I personally am a Reflector 5-1 with progressive education, and my variable is all left. So you can understand a little bit of why I find this process enjoying sharing this deep esoteric teaching with you. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the moon, what it means in human design, and how to track the moon transit. Specifically, this video is for reflectors, as most of my other videos kind of are, but if you're not a reflector, that's fine. You can also gain some wonderful information because the moon affects you as well. This inspiration behind making this video comes from a comment from Donna Lee about explaining a little bit more of the 28 to 29 day cycle of the moon. Now, I can't go into depth of like what all 64 gates mean in one video because then that would be like really long. Since it is said to take about an average of like a whole lifespan to understand the I Ching. So with human design, it's all about experience, and it's all about what you experience. Now, even though this is like a science and it's really detailed and it explains a lot, not only about yourself, but about, the mechanics of the rest of the world, it's really important for you as you're tracking any kind of planetary transits to be more aware of like how you're feeling in that moment. So it's not only just about understanding yourself, but also being aware of your environment, because the transits are really affecting everybody differently. Okay, so let's talk about the moon and what the moon means in human design. If you're familiar with like Western astrology or Vedic astrology or even sidereal astrology, the whole meaning and the interpretation of the moon, it represents your mother, it can represent your mind, and it can represent your emotions. Now, the thing with human design is it's a little bit different. Even though it does use aspects of Western astrology, the whole meaning specifically with the moon is slightly different. When we're talking about like the mother archetype in human design or in this like form of astrology, we're talking about the earth sign. So we can think of it as the father, the sun being the father, the earth being the mother, and those two come together to create the moon, and the archetype of the moon in human design is the eldest daughter. And the role of the moon is to reflect the sun. Now, the thing that's so special about the moon is even though it is reflecting the sun, it's the driving force or the directional force of the light that is taking from the sun and it's shining out. It's the moon in human design that shows us that we wouldn't have life here on earth. It's that continuation of life. All this is represented by the moon, and this is like the driving power, the continuation force of life on earth. Now, what's so special about being a reflector is we are lunar beings, where every other type is a solar being. So if you're not a reflector, it's going to be important for you to monitor the transit of the sun as it goes around the full mandala. So this is what it means. It's going all around here, right? And the moon goes all around this whole wheel every month, every 28 to 29 days, and it's activating each of these 64 gates. Now, what's so ironic, or I think it's so ironic and funny, is that reflectors are like slow-moving beings, yet we're influenced by the fastest-moving celestial body. If you are a reflector, this is why it's important for you to track the moon, because the moon is going through all 64 gates, and as it's going through all 64 gates, it's activating these lines. Depending upon your individual chart and your body graph, when one of these lines are activated, it can create a channel. When it creates a channel, it creates an energy source, and it creates the potential to actually tap into those energy sources. Now, to know the energy source and what those themes are, you have to look at your body graph, follow the moon, which changes every 8 to 10 hours, and see what is actually being activated at a certain and specific time. So first things first is, if you want to know where the moon is at, go to jovianarchive.com in the Just Now chart and look at the moon and look at the gate. Now, when we're talking about the gates and we're talking about getting the information to what that gate means, you're going to have to buy some books. This book is the book that I highly recommend, especially if you're new to human design. It's on Amazon. It's $50. I know that could be a little bit pricey for some people, but this really does explain the centers, it explains the transits, it explains your type, and explains all the types too. So not only will you get the information about yourself, you'll get the information about everybody else around you and so forth. This is just kind of like a wealth of information. And quite honestly, at 50 bucks and what people are charging for a design analysis of your chart, this is well worth it. And it contains a lot more information. If you want a little bit more of a deeper analysis of each gate and the activating line, this is the book you're going to need. This book is about, I think it's 80 bucks on Amazon, and I know it's smaller, but as you can see, I'll just show you guys a little bit of it. It goes through all of the gates and it goes through all of the lines, and it just shows you the channels that are activated and what those actually mean. So the I Ching, this book, is an ancient divination text that was written about 2000, 3000 BC. The I Ching is often referred to as like the Book of Changes. It's referred to as the 64 decisions. It's the 64 hexagrams, and it has the explanation of like what each hexagram means. And human design takes those 64 hexagrams and ties that into your body, your design, like your genetic design of the 64 codons of DNA and so forth. So I'm going to use the complete Rave I Ching to show you an example of just how human design takes the I Ching and gives you the information, the keynotes, or what I like to call themes, to understand the specific gates. So this is like the I Ching, the hexagram. And then, here's the gate. This is gate 1. It's the gate of self-expression. Here it tells you the channel, which is inspiration. And I'll go more into channels here in a little bit. But what I want to show you is just how this is the information that's given specifically about that gate. And it's not a lot of information. It's just like a little brief paragraph. And the thing about the I Ching and these gates are like their themes. So as you're monitoring the moon and you're looking at the different gates that the moon is in, simply look at the gates and look at the activating lines as well, if it's something that you want to be more interested in. So what I recommend is whenever you have the free time, if you can do it every day, great. If you can't, then do it as much as possible. But go to jovianarchive.com, go to the Just Now chart. That way you can see what gate the moon is in. And once you discover what gate the moon is in, you can refer back to your books to kind of see what the keynotes are, what the themes are, and then you can journal down what it is that you're feeling and what they're tied to. Now, let's talk about channels. So when a moon is in a specific gate, it's going to create a specific channel. So I'll use my chart as an example. I have gate 1 unconsciously activated. And whenever the moon comes into gate 8, that's going to create a channel. It's going to create the channel of inspiration, which is the creative role model. So for me personally, whenever I know that the moon is going to transit to gate 8, I know that I'm going to have like this tremendous amount of energy and this creative expression to express myself. And usually it's during this time that I do a lot of my creative writing, I do a lot of my poetry, and it's really interesting to notice that shift in myself of not being so left brain that I naturally am, but to experience some of this like right receptive energy as well. So that's what you want to do whenever you're looking at your own chart and monitoring the moon and seeing, what gates are being activated. And if you're like an unconscious reflector, you're not really sure about how to, understand some of these temporary transits and these temporary energies, what ends up happening is that these channels become so powerful in this energy that it's really easy for someone to become identified with them. It's very easy for somebody to become so identified with them and then have this deflating feeling once the moon gets out of that gate, because you can't tap into that anymore. Being a reflector, you don't have that consistent energy. And if you do this, you will see that you won't get conditioned. You won't get conditioned as a reflector. Being a reflector, it's really important for you when we're learning about understanding ourselves. A lot of it has to do with surrendering to the ever-changing nature and the ever-changing transit of the moon. And again, I understand how difficult this is, but with a little bit of practice, a little bit of awareness of just saying, okay, the moon is in this gate, it's creating this, and understanding your own chart first, and what channels you have the potential to experience, because you're going to experience these every single month. So if you know when an upcoming transit is going to happen, then you can say, okay, this energy is going to be available. I have the potential to tap into that energy. And if you're new to human design, I highly recommend that you learn about the 8 moon phases. On inspiredhumandesign.com, there's a blog post there with the meaning of the moon and the meanings, the esoteric meanings of the moon phases and what they mean and what you can begin to see as like an overall understanding when we're talking about the 8 moon phases. I believe that that's a really great start for anybody that wants to track the moon that's not already interested or already knows what the 8 moon phases are. So when we're talking about astrology and we're talking about human design, it's okay if you want to use Western to accompany human design, and it's okay to use Vedic if you want to use that to accompany human design, and even sidereal. It really doesn't matter, because what I've learned through studying like all these different sciences of astrology is, first of all, it's all about observation anyway. Your observation and your experience trumps over any book, any science, any teaching. Like, that's just it. Your experience and your observation is the most important thing when we're talking about understanding yourself and your environment. Astrology and human design are just tools to help you understand that. So if you feel that Western astrology is better for you, you like it, that's great, go for that. And if you're into Vedic astrology and you feel like that's great for you, great. If you're into sidereal, that's fine too. And it's important to understand in human design is that it takes principles and concepts found in astrology, not the whole like Western astrology, like this is the right way. And this is the same too for the Kabbalah and the I Ching as well. It takes those principles and incorporates them into human design to make something greater than these other astrological sciences. So if you are a reflector and you haven't already joined the Inspiring Facebook group, the link will be down below. You can consider this to be your formal invitation to join. And don't forget to go to inspiredhumandesign.com. Whether you're a reflector or not, there is a lot of information there for other types as well. So if you're watching this and you're not a reflector, you will find some helpful information. I guarantee that on inspiredhumandesign.com. So that's it. Hopefully you found this video enlightening, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.